What's up? Today we are going to be discussing the most underrated fighters in the UFC, and I thought I'd do another tier list for this video. A lot has been going on, a lot of people have been getting underrated, and it's time that we discuss who these guys are. Now, guys, I'm going to have a tier for underratedly entertaining fighters, and that's not necessarily to discuss their skill set, but it's going to be to discuss how entertaining they are and how people sleep on how entertaining they are. Or people just like go with the mob. We're going to go with the mob and call them boring just because everyone else says that. Yeah, they got no leg to stand on, and I'm going to shut them down in this video. We also have a slept on tier, which is for the fighters that no one really talks about at all. So without further ado, let's get right into this. Let me know if you guys disagree with any of these takes in the comments. The first guy on this list, Benoit Denis. I'm going to throw him in the A tier. I just made a poll on my channel asking my subscribers who they're picking in Benoit Denis versus Dustin Poirier, and right now, I see it's 51% in favor of DP. Over 1,000 people have voted on it. I literally just posted the poll, and I think they're being too nice, okay? And I think they're being too disrespectful to Benoit's skill set. Benoit Denis, why are you picking against him? You trying to be different? You're trying to hold on for dear life to that Dustin Poirier prime? Because I understand that Benoit's hittable, but the reasons that people have for picking Dustin to beat him are Justin Gaethje beat Rafael Fiziev. Really? Justin Gaethje beat Rafael Fiziev? That has anything to do with this matchup? Sorry, but no, it doesn't. You're trying to be different. If you're picking Benoit Denis, you're out of your fucking mind. All right? I just don't see enough good reasoning for people to pick against him against DP, other than he's not on that level, man. He hasn't competed at the top 5 yet. Okay, yeah. And who has before they get into the top 5? Isn't that how the game works? Like, I understand that people are going to say, listen, it's harder to run through these top 5 guys. I totally get it, but Dustin Poirier is up against a hard stylistic matchup. It's a nightmare for him. All right, this is not a kickboxing battle. I hate how people are bringing up Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. They're bringing up all the fraud checks, the Gamrot versus the Beneil Dariush fight. I don't know what that has anything to do with Benoit Denis versus DP. Is Fiziev shooting takedowns on Justin Gaethje? Is it a similar stylistic matchup? No, it's not. Is Justin Gaethje Dustin Poirier? No, he ain't. So I don't really get it. If that's your reasoning, then pick a better reason and pick Benoit because he's running through DP. You'll see. And people need to start understanding that it's his grappling that's super impressive. It's his heavy pressure grappling. And you guys act like Dustin Poirier wasn't getting mogged by Michael Chandler on the ground in their fight. Sure, Michael Chandler's pretty good, but I'd argue that Benoit's better. He's smarter. He's better tactically. And let's be honest, DP gasses out against these grapplers. He's not once gotten past someone that has Benoit's style. I know that this guy's open on the feet. I know that he's a little bit slow compared to DP, but at the same time, Dustin's getting older. He just got KO'd stiff, and he's in there with a much, much hungrier fighter. And you'll see, Benoit Denis will be able to beat Justin Gaethje too. Benoit Denis will be able to beat Rafael Fiziev. Benoit Denis is probably going to be able to beat Jalin Turner. The only people I would pick to beat Benoit, there's only 3 I could even think of. That's Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev, and maybe, just maybe, Arman Tsarukyan. We'll see how powerful he looks in his fight at UFC 300 when he fights Charles. Stop sleeping on him. He's going to blow through these guys. You'll see. I'm fucking sick and tired of people saying, oh, man, he's going to get fraud checked. Look at what happened to Fiziev. Yeah, like that has anything to do with this matchup. All right, let's move on to the next one. And also, who does Dustin Poirier KO early on? His chances are in the later rounds when they've been going to war and he gets into a flow state. He's not getting into his fucking flow state when Benoit Denis grabs onto him and ragdolls him for the first 2 rounds. So you'll see. Let's get on to the next one. Robelis Despaigne. I'm putting him in the S tier. Sick and tired of people not talking about this guy as a champ. Okay? All right. All jokes aside, I do have him S tier. And I could put him in the slept on tier, but people know who he is. It's just that, and I'm not even seeing comments picking Josh Parisian, but I just think that there are people out there that might pick Muhammad Usman to beat this guy. Okay? And just because in my mind that there's a couple of people out there that would even have the fucking balls to pick Muhammad Usman, or I should say the nerve not the balls, the nerve to pick Muhammad Usman. He's S tier. Don't ever pick against this guy when it comes to fat NPC heavyweights that have no finishing power. I don't give a fuck if they have a wrestling background. Shamil Gaziev, Muhammad Usman, they're not taking him down. They're getting head kicked in the first round. Okay? Longest reach in UFC history. Olympic Taekwondo background. Nasty, nasty KO power. Everybody's screwed up until the top 5. There's no debate. He's getting to the top 5. People aren't discussing this. People don't have enough confidence. It's already a foregone conclusion that, in my opinion, he's 3-0 in the UFC, and he's booked to fight Alexander Volkov. He's 3-0 in the UFC, and he's booked to fight Sergey Pavlovich. I'm going to be in a freaking catacomb, okay? A cocoon during this guy's fights, because I don't care. I already know the outcome. I know what's going to happen. Wake me up in 3 years when the real matchups start. S tier for Robelis Despaigne. Let's get on to the next one. S tier. Roman Kopylov's in the S tier. I still think he beats Izzy. I still think he beats Robert Whittaker. I think he gives Strickland a run for his money. Just because he lost to Anthony Hernandez does not mean that he loses to a bunch of strikers. I still think he outstrikes every single middleweight, aside from maybe Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis. And there's only one man that can do him like Anthony Hernandez did him, and that is Anthony Hernandez. There's no one else. Okay? Khamzat Chimaev? Maybe. Fair enough. Maybe. I think he could take Roman Kopylov down, but then he'll gas out. Okay? So there's literally 2 people, maybe. 2 people. Khamzat has that first round chance, of course. There's 2 guys. That's it. Adesanya, his fans are acting like... Dude, I talk about this on my live streams. This is crazy. I'll say things like Roman Kopylov beats Israel Adesanya, and people will like say, bro, dude, come on, man. But I think to myself, wait a second. Why are you so confident that Adesanya beats him? Because he has a ranking spot in front of his name and he's ranked number 1 and he used to be a champion? Because he lost to Jan Blachowicz and got outstruck by Alex Pereira? Because he lost to Robert Whittaker who has a 7-inch reach disadvantage in the rematch? You guys think that Adesanya KOs him? Who was Adesanya KO'd? He's KO'd one guy. I mean, he's KO'd a few guys. But, like, he KOs people when they're making stupid mistakes. Robert Whittaker running at him in their first fight. Okay? Alex Pereira tripling up on hooks, not protecting himself, and getting overly eager to get a finish. Derek Brunson, who's literally diving at Adesanya's knees, asking to get KO'd stiff. So, again, let me ask you, who does... And Paulo Costa, who's a big bum. Who does Adesanya put away like that? You think that Roman Kopylov is going to be Paulo fucking Costa? Get out of here. But let me guess. Roman Kopylov didn't finish Josh Fremd until the second. Oh, yeah, right. That's right, because every single UFC legend has 5 first-round finishes before they get to the rankings. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Adesanya couldn't finish Rob Wilkinson until the second round, so I guess it's similar, huh? Listen, getting a first-round finish doesn't mean jack shit. It's an eye test thing. Roman Kopylov has the best body kicks in the middleweight division's history. He has the best body shots in the middleweight division's history. He has fast hands. He has better boxing. He beats Izzy. He beats chinny man Robert Whittaker. I think he does. What's Whittaker gonna get? What's Whittaker gonna do with his pillow hands? I understand Whittaker can school Marvin Vettori. I understand Whittaker can beat Jared Cannonier. Roman Kopylov's better than these guys, and I don't give a fuck if he got outgrappled by Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez is underrated as hell too. I'm putting him in the A tier. Anthony Hernandez, who has Merab Dvalishvili type of cardio, who has a submission game too. So it's like, not only does he have some of the scariest cardio in the history of the entire sport, but he can also finish people, and he has a granite chin and he's super tough. So Anthony Hernandez, who's basically like a Khamzat Chimaev that can do it for 5, beats Roman Kopylov, and therefore Adesanya, a striker, easily beats Roman Kopylov. Let me know why. Who is Izzy KO'd? Robert Whittaker running at him like a fool. Alex Pereira tripling up on hooks like a fool. Derek Brunson diving at Adesanya's flying knee. Not a flying knee, but just a knee to his jaw. If Brunson wanted that. Who was Adesanya KO'd in a little tit-for-tat battle? Nobody. Roman Kopylov is a better striker than Izzy in MMA. I don't care if Adesanya beat who. Who'd he beat? Marvin Vettori, huh? Yeah, for sure. Yep. Roman Kopylov absolutely takes a crap on Marvin Vettori and eats him. And so you just heard that, and your rebuttal might be, well, Lucas Adesanya doesn't need to KO Roman Kopylov in order to beat him. He could just beat him by decision because he's a high-level striker. Well, then how come every single time he goes to decision, he stinks it up and hardly wins? So let me get this straight. He goes to a horrible, horrifically boring, and terrible decision with Marvin Vettori. Therefore, he just puts on a masterclass, easy performance against Roman Kopylov, who's 1,000 times better than Marvin Vettori. And what are you going to say next? Vettori? No, you don't understand, man. Vettori's a masterful grappler. He'd beat Roman too. Is Marvin Vettori going to chain wrestle and never gas out and completely humiliate this guy on the ground? Are you picking Marvin Vettori to beat him? No? Okay, got it. Now, I'm not taking away from Robert Whittaker. I'm not taking away from Adesanya. They're phenomenal. That's why I have Roman in the S tier, because he's also phenomenal. And back to Anthony Hernandez. How come people aren't hyping him up more? Again, it's like, who's going to stop this man? I got him in the A tier. The only reason, again, he's lower than Kopylov is because he beat Kopylov and people are rating him high. They're rating him very high, but not high enough. Like, he could be champ. He beats everybody in this division outside of, I would say, Dricus maybe? I mean, is Hamzat, what's Hamzat going to do to him? This guy's grappling is phenomenal. Hamzat has to sub him in the first round. Otherwise, I mean, Hamzat has a bad gas tank. What happens if it goes to the second against the guy with the best gas tank in the whole division that's also really good on the ground? He's fucked. If you don't knock him out in the first, you're done. Strickland? Oh, okay, Strickland has good cardio. He's good takedown defense. It doesn't matter. It's like fighting Merab. It doesn't matter how good your cardio is. It'll never be on this guy's level. Next up, I'm putting Petr Yan in the A tier. I definitely have Yan in the A tier because people talk about him as if he's washed. Like, I keep seeing that. Washed. Is he, though? Like, have you not seen how his fights have been going? Yeah, he lost to Merab, who's probably the scariest guy in the bantamweight division, who, if you can't put him out in the first, we know Yan is a bit of a slow starter. No one's going to beat him. But outside of that, he arguably beat O'Malley. Let's not just sit here and, because a lot of time has went by, say, all right, whatever. We're not going to count robberies after a year. No, there's no statute of limitations when it comes to a robbery. There isn't. It was a robbery. It is what it is. And if you don't want to call it a robbery, then it was an extremely close fight. And hurting O'Malley on the feet, giving O'Malley the toughest fight of his life on the feet is also impressive. And then what? He lost to Aljo? He also beat Aljamain Sterling. The first fight. Okay, fine. No contest. It was in the fourth round. It's not like it was a first round no contest. We know what was going to happen in that fourth. We know what was going to happen in that fifth. Yan was on his way to winning. He was winning the fight. I'm not just going to pretend that shit didn't happen. Okay? And then what did he do after that? He beat Corey Sandhagen. That's Aljo's best win. Okay, he lost to Merab. That's the only bad loss he has. His resume is literally just as good as Aljamain Sterling's, but people talk about Aljo as if he's the second best bantamweight, the consensus second best bantamweight to ever do it. You're getting ahead of yourselves. Jan's right up there. Every single win that Aljo has, every great win that he has, Yan has one too. They're 1-1 as far as I'm concerned, and he's only got one bad loss to Merab. How was his takedown defense in that? I mean, goodness gracious. You want to talk about skills alone? His takedown defense looked insane. Have you seen anyone else light O'Malley up like Yan did? Now, of course, he had to work his ass off for it, but he was landing bombs on O'Malley. He was hurting him. He was rocking him. Okay? His durability, next level. He still doesn't get credit for how durable he is. I just rewatched that Aldo fight yesterday. Aldo was lighting this dude's body up. Not a single one of those shots affected him. And you're going to see when he fights Song Yadong, who's a lot easier to hit than O'Malley, who is fast, who's powerful, that he ain't washed. You'll see. Let's get on to the next one. Chase Hooper. I'm putting Chase Hooper in the slept on, nobody talks about them tier. You know what? I'm a little bit reluctant to put him in the nobody talks about him tier because people do talk about Chase Hooper, but it's all memes. It's just making fun of him for looking like a soy boy, making fun of him for looking skinny, looking like a nerd. Back in the day, it was the whole like Ben Askren is his dad stuff. So I might even put him in the B tier. I'm going to put him in the B tier. People don't talk about how much potential he has. And he does kind of remind me of a young Charles Oliveira, who, when Charles was young, didn't necessarily have that nasty, dangerous striking. And Chase Hooper doesn't have it. But he does have a lot of potential when it comes to the toughness. He's got the cardio. I mean, his first fight at lightweight, he broke a significant strikes record for a 3-rounder. I mean, he ran through Jordan Levitt, whose whole thing is grappling. And I know Paddy Pimblett's been able to do that, but every single time I see this guy on the ground, he's just slicing through people like it's nothing. But if he can improve on his striking, he's going to be legit. And don't count this guy out when it comes to potentially being a top 5 lightweight in the future. I'm just saying, his grappling is nasty. A lot of these jiu-jitsu guys, like, for example, Claudio Puelles. A lot of these grappling guys, it just doesn't translate that well to MMA, and they're useless down there. But Chase Hooper's super dangerous, and I think that is necessary for the lightweight division. On to the next one. Movsar Evloev. I'm going to put Movsar in the underratedly entertaining tier. People act like this guy is a boring crotch sniffer. And in my opinion, you're just doing what the crowd's telling you to do. All right? You're just lapping it up. You're lapping up the narrative. You're listening to Ilia Topuria call him boring and saying he can't get any finishes. And it's true. He can't get finishes. And it's okay if Ilia talks shit about it because that's some competitive trash talk. But at the same time, since when is a finish the end-all be-all when it comes to having an impressive performance? Now, I'm not going to act like he had a really amazing performance against Arnold Allen because I think Arnold Allen actually won that fight. But what I will say is that John Jones, some of his best wins are not finishes, okay? Alexander Volkanovski, some of his best wins aren't finishes. Let's not just turn into one of these, if you didn't get a flatline KO, you're a bum. Let's cut it out. And let's stop acting like just because you're going to decision, you're boring. His fight with Arnold Allen, despite what Dana White said, because he was coping and he was probably pissed about that WMMA Pennington, Mario Bonasilva title fight and didn't want to take it out on that, so he used Movsar and Allen as a scapegoat to take his rage out on. And a lot of you guys listened to that and just said, yeah, screw that fight. That was a terrible fight. Actually, it was a sick fight. It was a sick fight. The second round was entertaining. We saw Allen get rocked, and Movsar had a big moment. And he was standing on the feet with Allen, throwing with high output, putting pressure on him, getting in his face. The third round, Allen hurts Movsar badly. They have a good striking battle in that round as well. The first round, they had a good striking battle. And Movsar, he's not just a crotch sniffer, dude. When he gets takedowns, we've seen him beat the shit out of people. For example, look at the Diego Lopez fight, where outside of the few submission attempts, Movsar was beating the fuck out of Diego Lopez. There were actually moments where the ref was thinking about stepping in to stop the fight. And on the feet, I'll say it once again, he has high output. He has flashy techniques. This guy was landing flying knees on Dan Ige. I think he landed 2 of them. So what is so fucking boring about this guy? I honestly don't get it. What is so boring about him? He throws a lot. He has flashy techniques. He has a heavy pressure style. He doesn't just grab onto people and sniff their crotches. Enough. Enough of the bullshit. Like, yeah, he had a couple of stinky fights when he first got into the UFC, like his fight against Hakeem Dawodu. Now that he's in his prime, his fight with Dan Ige, high-paced, fun fight. His fight against Diego Lopez, high-paced, fun fight. The grappling had a lot of ground and pound. It wasn't just him hugging onto him for dear life. I mean, keep that same energy with some of these other beloved fighters like Alexander Pantoja. I like Pantoja, but when that guy grapples, he doesn't do shit with it. He sits in half guard and camps there and does absolutely fuck all. So you guys are just hating on Movsar because he's a Dagestani fighter that happens to shoot takedowns, and you call him a crotch sniffer when in reality he actually does have high output on the feet. And that's that. So keep doing what you're told. Let's get on to the next one. Jalin Turner, I'm putting Jalin Turner in the A tier. Oh, we're back to this one. I don't care if Dan Hooker beat him. I'm just going to say this. There was something in that water that Dan Hooker was drinking that day. There was something there. Because I don't know how he was able to survive that fight. We see Dan Hooker get dropped by Michael Chandler, who of course has big bombs and he's a very powerful guy. We've seen Dan Hooker get finished before, but a head kick that literally breaks and fractures his skull doesn't do the trick. Listen, Dan Hooker, the stars aligned for him that night, okay? But people act like he dog-walked Jalin Turner. It was actually a really competitive fight. Turner dominated the first round and a half, and Hooker dominated the last round and a half, okay? And I still think that because Jalin Turner is a guy that utilizes his frame, people call him a weight bully too, by the way, and he has missed weight before, fair enough. If you make weight, you're not a weight bully. Straight up. A lot of people cut a shitload of weight. Enough with the bullshit. But Jalin Turner, he was up against someone that also was tall, that also had a long reach, and I think he's going to make it look a lot more dominant against some of these shorter strikers. I would pick Jalin Turner to beat Rafael Fiziev. I guarantee you most of the people that just heard me say that disagree, and that's why I still think he's underrated. Jalin Turner, on short notice, we usually talk about how guys shouldn't take short notice fights, annihilated Bobby Green, totally fucked him up, and people were picking Bobby Green in that fight. I get it. Green is good. Green has a lackluster chin, and he doesn't have any power in his hands. Jalin Turner was always going to steamroll him. I know that not everyone is Bobby Green with the pillow hands and the lackluster chin, even though Green is good, but I still think Jalin Turner knocks out a bunch of strikers in the lightweight division. Grapplers, they're going to give him issues, but strikers, I'm picking him to beat Fiziev, who doesn't have the best gas tank, who has overrated power. I think he's going to have a massive frame and reach advantage over him, speed advantage over him, and if Mateusz Gamrot is spinning your head back with right hands, I think Turner can do it. If he were to get matched up with Dustin Poirier right now, would have a decent chance to beat him. Again, Poirier, against Dan Hooker, struggled massively. A lot of that was the reach and the frame. Well, Jalin Turner right now has an even greater reach advantage. He's even faster than Dan Hooker ever was and is more powerful, and Dustin Poirier is older, coming off of a KO loss. You may not like these takes. I don't think that this guy is ever going to be a champion. I don't think he's going to be able to get past the best grapplers in the division, but I still think he's underrated. I'm just going to say it how it is. Let's get on to the next one. Themba Gorimbo. If you don't know, now you know. All right? Themba Gorimbo is, in my opinion, one of the best imposers of his will in the UFC. I think that this guy's mindset is going to take him to the top. People think of Themba, oh, little Themba. He's a good story. He's a wholesome story, but yeah, we can't talk about him as if he's going to actually be good. You'll see. His opponents have been thinking that too, and then they wake up looking under the bright lights, looking at the bright lights. So Themba Gorimbo, even though he's only pulling 30 views on his interviews right now, I think that this guy is eventually going to get into the rankings. I think he's going to be fighting like a man who is almost as hungry as Merab, and he's going to be running through people. You'll see. And the UFC is going to give him some good matchups, but people aren't talking about him enough. Put some respect on this guy's name. Behind the scenes, we know how Themba gets down. Behind the scenes, we know Themba's finesse in the UFC. We know he's finesse in The Rock. He will finesse the fans into, actually paying attention. And he will be finessing his opponents in the future by lulling them into this idea that we're going to be all buddy-buddy. This is a good story. We're part of the Cinderella story. And the next thing you know, you're waking up under the bright lights. So Themba Gorimbo, slept on. Molly McCann, underratedly entertaining. Underratedly entertaining. I think that Molly McCann is the most entertaining WMMA fighter maybe in history. Like, listen, this is what I mean by that. Now, of course, we know that she can't really grapple, and we know that she can get ran through on the ground. And what I think about that is I don't really like seeing decisions with a lot of grappling in WMMA. I'm not really the biggest fan of a WMMA decision anyway. And Molly McCann, when she gets submitted in the first, she puts us out of our potential misery of having to watch a camping fest on the ground. Okay? And on the feet, Molly McCann swings big bombs and slugs for the fences. Yes, she ain't that great, but it's entertaining because she's either going to get a nasty KO or she's going to get destroyed on the ground. So she's like the Charles Oliveira of WMMA. And people don't like her because she's a loudmouth. She's a little bit obnoxious, always trying to take the limelight from Paddy Pimblett, and she could be a little bit cringy. But you know what? Cringy is better than nothing. It's better than the whole bad to the bone mindset. You see these WMMA fighters walking out, bad to the bone. And they got a mean mug on their face walking out just to go out there and shadow box for 3 rounds. and that's their whole shtick. They're just tough cookies. Molly McCann, it's better that she's trying and that she's cringy than nothing at all. On to the next one. I'm going to put Marcos Rogerio de Lima on the slept-on, nobody talks about him tier. What is up with this? Now, I know that this guy's lost to people like Blagoy Ivanov, and I'm not going to make a claim that he's a low-key heavyweight legend, but I'm kind of noticing a little bit of a Glover Teixeira effect. Not in his style, but this guy is absolutely raking and beating the fuck out of heavyweights at the latter half of his career. He's looking better than ever. He's hardly gotten finished in the heavyweight division. The only person to ever put him away is Derek Lewis, and of course, it's like a 450-pound Derek Lewis flying at you with a flying knee. You're never going to eat that shot. But Marcos Rogerio de Lima, I think, is the king of the NPCs at heavyweight. He's got ridiculously good kicks. I mean, he got a leg kick TKO last time over a former Glory kickboxing fighter. I know he took it on short notice, but still, Marcos Rogerio de Lima's kicks are nasty. His power is nasty. All right, he's got fast hands. He's a density maxer. He's super dense. And he can grapple too. He's well-rounded. He's good. He's solid. And you should pick this guy unless he's fighting someone like Alexander Volkov. But he beats all of the outside of the top 10 heavyweights easily outside of Despaigne. Okay? I think he beats Muhammad Usman easily. Easily. But people would pick Muhammad Usman because he has the Usman last name. So no one talks about him. I think that he's a crafty vet that doesn't get enough respect for being pretty freaking good. Okay? Let's get on to the next one. Jonathan Martinez. I'm wondering, should I put him in the A tier or should I put him in the S tier? On one hand, a lot of people say that I'm going to put him in the A tier. Okay? Like, you could make the argument that he's the best kicker in all of MMA. Because how many people are finishing guys with low kicks? I think he's only 29 years old, and he's already tied the record for most leg kick TKOs in the UFC, which is crazy. I mean, imagine how many this guy's going to have when he's like 36, 37. Goodness gracious. I mean, those low kicks, that's a weapon that you could hold on to for a long time. Perfect example of that being Jan Blachowicz. When you get older and slower, you still always got those big, ugly low kicks, and those shins, they get more conditioned, if anything. So I'm predicting that this guy is going to have an insane record in the record books. But the only reason I'm not putting him S tier is because people already talk about him being underrated. But as a striker, listen, if all it takes is 10 leg kicks in the bantamweight division, where these guys land a lot of leg kicks, and most bantamweights just don't have that same effect, if that's all it takes to completely own your opponent, to render them like basically someone that's useless, Adrian Yanez is a legit striker. 8 low kicks in, he couldn't walk in both stances. He was hobbling around. Holy shit. That's nuts. You're going to have to out-grapple this guy or knock him out, and he's very durable. Okay? Very durable. He's got good instincts on the ground too. A little bit awkward with his hands, but once his opponents are wobbling around, it becomes a lot easier for him. So, yeah, I don't think he's S tier because that would mean, he's even more underrated than most people say, and maybe he can get past a bunch of these grapplers. But my goodness, anyone that's in a striking battle with this guy, even if it's a guy like O'Malley, a guy like Yan, a guy like Song Yadong, goodness gracious. I don't care if those guys look flashier and they look better. They're more technical, and they have better instincts. They have more finesse. Those low kicks, 5 of them, the whole fight is different. And we're talking about on the verge of a TKO different. So it's just such an OP style. Let's get on to the next one. Joanderson Brito, A tier as well. This guy, like, no one's really talking about him, but the hardcores know who this guy is. He has beat Diego Lopez on the Dana White Contender Series, and he's running through people, like destroying guys in the featherweight division. For some reason, the UFC is not giving him a bump up in competition. I'd like to see him fight a Bostrop brother just to show you guys the difference between the real killers at bantamweight and the guys that are just racking up a bunch of wins over nobodies. Joanderson Brito is a monster. He's a finisher everywhere the fight goes. Big power in his hands. And again, people are sleeping on this dude. So I think that Joanderson Brito is, I'm going to put him B tier just because, again, it's like people don't really talk about him as being overrated, right? As being bad in any way. People know he's good. People know he's good, but I'm considering putting him in the A tier just because, again, no one really talks about him enough. The hardcore fans talk about him more than Themba and Marcos Rogerio de Lima, though. So he's excellent. I'm putting him in the A tier. Song Yadong. I'm putting Song Yadong in the A tier as well. I think that in some ways people are overrating Song Yadong when it comes to this Petr Yan matchup, for example. I think Yan's going to beat him. I think he's going to outbox him. Song is dangerous, but I don't think his instincts in the pocket are going to be as good. And he's also kind of a slow starter as well. But the reason I put Song in the A tier, because I think that Corey can beat him again. There are some guys that can beat him, is because I think that he's Merab Dvalishvili's nightmare matchup. Song has ridiculously good takedown defense. He's a brick wall. He has one-punch knockout power. Merab doesn't have the best chin. I think Song is the most powerful bantamweight in the world right now. You could talk about O'Malley's precision. He has good power 100%. Song Yadong has the best power at bantamweight. I think he chins O'Malley too. I think it's a nightmare matchup for O'Malley. Take Cheeto, for example. We talk about Cheeto's chin and how that's going to give him a chance to get a win in this fight, to survive, taking a lot of damage. Song Yadong also has one of the best chins in the UFC. I've also never really seen him rocked at all. And he's also one of the fastest bantamweights too, who does have really good hands, who has great kicks, who has good wrestling. If he has 5 rounds in there with O'Malley, I do trust in his chances to land a bomb on O'Malley and to potentially put him away. Anyway, let's get on to the next one. Mateusz Rebeckie. This guy's a monster. All right? I've been talking about him on my channel, but I still don't think people understand how good this guy is. I think that he could beat top 10 guys right now. Top 5, it's too early to tell. But Mateusz Rebeckie, the best way to describe him, as I've said in the past, he is like a slightly lower output Alexander Volkanovski at lightweight. He's stocky, short. He's like 5'6", but he's got ridiculous power. He imposes his will like a madman, runs at people, chops their legs down. He's got ridiculously strong low kicks. His grappling is insane. He's a powerful wrestler with a submission game. He can finish people on the ground too. And I just don't see who's going to stop this guy outside of the rankings. I don't think anyone stops this guy outside of the rankings. All right? He's up against Joel Alvarez next, who also is a very dangerous fighter. But I think he's going to do exactly what Arman Tsarukyan did to Joel Alvarez. I think he's going to pick him up, take him down easily, and beat his ass on the ground. And he's going to chop down his chicken legs on the feet too. All right? I don't want to hear nothing about Joel Alvarez can grapple. I know he can grapple. I know he has a submission game, but Mark Jacasey was taking him down at will too. Eventually got subbed, but this ain't Mark Jacasey, who did take him down. So you'll see. He's going to run through his next few opponents. He's going to finish everybody on the come-up in the 155-pound division. Dude is an absolute tank. So be on the lookout for him. Be on the lookout. Up next, Ian Garry. I'm putting Ian Garry in the B tier. Still underrated in my opinion. Now, people know he's legit on the feet. I do think that he might be declining right now because I heard that he was only 180 pounds in the cage, which makes his win over Jeff Neal look more impressive because Jeff Neal had 20 pounds on him. But the reason that's a cause for concern is because I think Garry probably weighed more in his previous fights in the cage. I actually have noticed that his physique, his muscle, is deteriorating. Like, he's going catabolic. This guy's losing muscle because he's on a vegan diet, and therefore he's getting weaker. Maybe move down to lightweight? You never know, but listen. People clowned him too much for that performance. Now, a lot of it was Jeff Neal doing a whole bunch of useless clinching, but that's the way you have to fight Jeff Neal on the feet at least, right? And he wasn't just teeping Jeff Neal at range and jabbing him up. I mean, he was closing the distance, landing solid knees in the clinch. Like, he was out not pocket boxing, but out clinching Jeff Neal. He was crashing forward with one of the heaviest punchers in that division, mincing him up with knees to the body and countering afterwards with the hands. He looked great. And there aren't that many guys that are as dangerous as Jeff Neal in that division. Tit for tat, battle-wise, I think that he probably beats everyone in that division outside of potentially a Jack Della Maddalena that's not as much of a headhunter. But I think he would outstrike Leon Edwards. I mean, let me ask you, are you so confident that Leon lays this guy out cold? Leon and his nasty KO power, huh? Leon's super high output, right? Listen, when Leon is forced to throw a lot of output, he does, but he usually has the range advantage. He usually has the speed advantage. Ian Garry is going to be able to match him there. He has more output than Leon, and he has better hands than Leon. Leon Edwards' hands, his boxing, it's not his strong suit. I'm not saying he beats the champ. I'm not saying that. I think Leon is a lot stronger than him. He's a lot smarter than Jeff Neal, and he also has a grappling advantage. And even though Jeff Neal was clinching, he wasn't really trying to take him down. Leon could out-grapple him. He could mix it up better as a better MMA fighter, a more well-rounded guy. But on the feet, Leon Edwards is not this infallible striker. Again, I'm not convinced that Ian Garry beats everyone up on the feet. I think Wonderboy would give him a tough fight. Perhaps Jack Della Maddalena. But another thing that I think is a little bit underrated is his chin. Like, he has a pea head, doesn't have the best chin, but he didn't get hurt by any of Jeff Neal's punches. So there's that. I still think he's kind of underrated. Azamat Murzakanov, I'm throwing him in the A tier. Now, why is he in the A tier? Well, you guys don't understand. Number one, he's undefeated. Let me just get that out of the way. This guy has a 97% saturation level. And I've talked about density maxing, how important it is to be dense. Azamat Murzakanov, let me say this again, 97% saturation level. This is fucking nuts. Okay? Sure, you could be lean and mean. You could be shredded all you want. Azamat can hardly get any denser than he already is. I've never seen someone of his stature who looks at a far distance very underwhelming, kind of out of shape a little bit. This guy is jumping in the air 50 feet. I think that this guy could win a fucking NBA dunk contest. How dynamic he is. Flying in the air, catching you with shots you never thought possible. He's like Muslim Salikov when Muslim Salikov was in his prime. Straight up, but he's doing it at light heavyweight. It's ridiculous. And he's doing it against bigger guys. Why? Again, most people are going to look at this face right here, and they're going to think crotch sniffer, Dagestani crotch sniffer. No. Quick twitch striker who looks like a 50-year-old man, okay, from a distance. It kind of seems like an underwhelming fat guy. The next thing you know, you get in front of him, and you're in front of one of the greatest athletes in the world. So Azamat Murzakanov is A tier. Let's get on to the next one. Nicholas Dalby. Slept on. People don't talk about Dalby enough. He's got ridiculous cardio. Some of the best heavy pressure cardio in the UFC. He's got a little bit of the Teixeira factor as well, where wasn't so good when he first got into the UFC. Now, all of a sudden, I don't know, is he on the EPO or something? He's 39 and he's just killing dudes. Like, he's just breaking people on the feet within 2 rounds just because of how heavy his pressure is and how relentless his cardio is. Phenomenal fraud checker. He just fraud checked one of the Bonfim brothers. I got to give him some respect. He's really solid. Volkov. I'm going to put Volkov at the B tier. One of the best gatekeepers in the UFC right now. If he's not fighting a top 4 heavyweight, he's destroying anyone in his path. Magomed Ankalaev. I'm going to put Magomed in the B tier too. I think that his win over Johnny Walker kind of proved to everyone that he was extremely underrated. If you look at this guy's record, well, the only guy he's lost to is Paul Craig. Every single other person he's fought, he's beat. We're talking Thiago Santos, even though it was a boring fight, he still beat him. We're talking Jan Blachowicz. I know that was a draw, but let's not act like Jan is a walk in the park, and he won the first round. Watch that first round back. There's no argument that Jan wins that first round. He basically should have won that fight. The judges actually got it wrong. I remember I was saying it was a good draw, but I was a Jan fan. That's before I ever watched it back. He easily outstruck Jan in the first round. He technically beat Blachowicz. He should have been the champion. And then outside of that, I mean, he's knocking dudes out, right? Knocked out An Kutalaba, knocked out Johnny Walker, knocked out Anthony Smith on the ground, finished him. He's pretty freaking good, man. Beat Nikita Krylov. Nikita Krylov ain't no slouch. He ain't a complete slouch, man. And I think that he would probably beat Alex Pereira because he can mix in the takedowns. He is a very patient and smart and high fight IQ fighter. He has great kicks. He has high output. And he can mix in the takedowns, as I said. So Magomed's excellent. His resume is very underrated. The fact that he's only had like 1 legit loss and he's had over 10 fights in the UFC is pretty crazy. And I think his hardest matchup is actually going to be Jamahal Hill. And that's because I'm putting Jamahal Hill in the A tier. Jamahal Hill's underrated too. People act like he's going to get creamed by Alex Pereira. Like, Jamahal Hill's got insane speed. He's got high output, heavy volume. And I think that's going to be an issue for anyone in this division. And most importantly, we saw that he had good takedown defense and a great ability to get up to his feet when he fought Glover Teixeira. I mean, Glover had this man in his best position. He was in full mount on Jamahal Hill, and Jamahal Hill would just buck him off, which is crazy. So I think Jamahal Hill could actually beat Magomed Ankalaev. I really do. Jamahal Hill also has a granite chin. Again, it's like Magomed has high output. He's super smart and patient, but he is hittable. He's not perfect. You can kick him. And Jamahal Hill, he's got some of the best kickboxing I've ever seen at light heavyweight. He's so fast. He doesn't get tired on the feet. I think he's going to knock Alex Pereira out. And he's in the A tier because, again, people just think he has no business thinking he can beat Alex Pereira. Like, he's biting off way more than he can chew. When Pereira, we've seen him have competitive fights with a bunch of guys. I mean, him and Yuri, in the second round at least, was very competitive. Him and Blachowicz was competitive. Blachowicz ain't no joke. I totally get that. Adesanya chinned him, right? I'm not saying Pereira ain't the better striker than all these guys. I think he is, but Pereira, in my opinion, is not looking as dominant as he did at middleweight. At middleweight, I don't think anyone would have ever been able to outstrike him in like a tit-for-tat battle. His speed in that weight class was uncanny. For how big he is, mixed in with the power, and how he doesn't telegraph anything. I mean, he was truly a terrifying force in that division. Now that he's moved up, he's still really good. His kickboxing, his technique, his instincts are great. But I just don't think that he's the same kind of force with lesser speed, with more size on, and as he gets older. But I could be wrong. On to the next one, Jack Hermansson. I'm putting Hermansson in the B tier. Only reason he's not higher is because he still lost to Vettori. But listen, I've been underrating this guy for years. I've been disrespecting Hermansson. I've been joking around about him. We know how dangerous he is on the ground, but his loss to Strickland aged really well. That's not a bad loss anymore. Of course, he got knocked out by Jared Cannonier, but that was probably the fastest Cannonier was ever going to be. He was younger back then. Sure, Cannonier is better now, but as far as his physicality and power, like, that's the most dangerous Cannonier's ever going to be, and that's not the worst loss to have. Cannonier, in my opinion, he's a solid, staple top 5 middleweight on earth. He's legit. I think Hermansson has a lot of winnable fights in the top 10. I think he beats Marvin Vettori in a rematch. Quite easily, I do. I do think he beats him. I don't mind his chances to beat Izzy. Like, listen, guys, listen. Hermansson's wrestling isn't as good as Vettori maybe, but it's close. And if Vettori got the back, Hermansson's getting the choke. You know what I'm saying? If Vettori can get the back, Hermansson can get the back. If Vettori's too stupid to close his legs and actually get a body triangle, Hermansson might be able to get it. Now, I'm not saying he wins. I'm not saying he beats Izzy. Oh my gosh, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, don't sleep on him. I'm being honest right now. Don't even sleep on him. Whittaker? How is Hermansson going to hurt Whittaker? He's got pillow hands. True. But, I mean, so does Whittaker, right? And sure, Whittaker can take down Hermansson, but honestly, he's not going to be able to control him. He's going to have to stand with a high-output Jack Hermansson, with improved boxing, with improved boxing defense, with a heavy, high-output kicking game too. Hermansson is actually really solid. I put him in the B tier. I think he would give these guys tough fights. I'd pick Whittaker to beat him. I'd pick Izzy to beat him. I would. But I don't mind Hermansson's chances to make it close. Arnold Allen. I'm putting Arnold Allen in the A tier. He won 2 rounds off of Max Holloway. That was a 48-47. Maybe on paper it was 49-46, but if you rewatch that fight, there's an argument that Arnold Allen won the 5th round. He definitely won the 2nd round. Max Holloway only had like 2 pretty clear rounds. That was the 1st and the 3rd. The 4th round was very close. I mean, he had a razor close fight with Max. Sure, he got dropped at the very end of the 5th, but for 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the 5th round against Max, who has amazing cardio, who's usually a guy that excels in deep waters, he was putting the pressure on Holloway. Low output Allen, right? With an okay gas tank, was putting the pressure on Holloway. He was chewing him up with his striking up against the fence, landing bombs on him. And then he beat Evloev. Arnold Allen's really good. Like, his only loss legitimately is to Holloway, and it was an extremely close fight. So don't be surprised if Arnold Allen fights for a belt one day. Don't be surprised if he continues to get a bunch of wins in the top 10. I still think he's underrated. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Most underrated fighters in the UFC. Let me know in the comments what you think. Until next time.